The house smelled of dust and my mother's fading perfume. It was a scent of endings. My parents were gone, and as the will had confirmed, everything now belonged to Julian. The house, the money, the portfolio of memories where he was the star. I was there to help him pack up the past, an executor's assistant, a role I had rehearsed for 38 years. Everywhere I looked, Julian's life was on display. His football trophies gleamed on the mantelpiece. His graduation photos lined the hall. My own childhood seemed to have been vaporized. There was no evidence of my existence, save for the faint scuff marks on the stairs where I'd once tripped and broken my arm, an incident my mother had called a clumsy bid for attention. Julian assigned me the attic. "You always loved hiding up here, Tom," he said with a magnanimous smile, as if granting a favor. It was true. The attic was the house's memory hole, the one place my insignificance felt at home. While prying up a floorboard that had been loose since I was a boy, my fingers hit something solid. It was a small, dark wooden box, intricately carved and fastened with a tarnished brass lock. It felt ancient, secret. I took it to my old room and picked the lock with a paperclip. Inside, there was no jewelry, no hidden cash. There was only a stack of children's drawings, done in thick, angry crayon. They weren't mine or Julian's. One showed a stick-figure family, mother, father, son, having a picnic. But in the corner of the page, a smaller, smudged figure watched from behind a tree. Another depicted the family asleep in their beds, while the shadow child stood over the son's cot, holding a pair of scissors. A cold dread, heavy and familiar, settled in my gut. This was the first twist, the discovery of a third child, a ghost who had haunted these walls long before I did. My obsession became a quiet fever. I started searching for other traces of this forgotten life. In the floral wallpaper of the main hallway, I found a faint, rectangular outline, perfectly child-sized, where a photo must have hung for years. On the kitchen doorframe, below the neat pencil marks charting Julian's growth, I found one small, solitary notch, barely visible. It was labeled with a single, smudged letter, L. I tried to show Julian, my hands trembling slightly. He glanced at the drawings, his brow furrowed in mild annoyance. "Probably some cousins, Tom. You're overthinking it. Mom and Dad were a one-masterpiece gallery, and I was it. You know that." He laughed, a sound that had always felt like a slammed door. My search led me to the basement, to a section behind the hulking, ancient furnace that had always been sealed off. A sense of trespass, thrilling and terrifying, spurred me on. I pried away the rotting drywall. Behind it was a small, windowless room. A crude bed frame rusted in the corner, and on the plaster walls, scratched with what looked like a nail, were the same images from the box. The shadow child, the happy family, the scissors, and a name, gouged into the wall over and over, Leo. When Julian saw the hole in the wall, his face tightened with rage. "What the hell have you done, Tom?" But when I whispered the name, Leo, the anger drained from his face, replaced by a fear I had never seen in him before. "That's not a name you should know," he said, his voice a strained whisper. The truth, when it came, was a brutal confession. Leo was their older brother. "Sick," Julian said. "Violent. After an incident where Leo had tried to hurt him in his crib, their parents had sent him away. They had methodically erased every trace of him to give Julian a perfect, untroubled life, free from the shadow of a damaged sibling. This was the second twist. The favoritism wasn't just neglect. It was a deliberate, clinical erasure. I felt a dizzying wave of vindication. I wasn't the original disappointment. I was the second attempt at a spare son. The final, horrifying truth was waiting for me in the bottom of that wooden box, stuck to the velvet lining. It was a single faded photograph I had missed. It showed two small boys. One was a beaming, confident Julian. The other was a thin, sullen child with my own haunted eyes. It was me, but we weren't alone. Standing behind us, with a hand resting on each of our shoulders, was a young man in his late teens, his face grim, his eyes hollow. On the back, in my mother's script, was a caption, "Julian and Thomas with their caregiver Leo. Summer 1992. The hospital hadn't been a permanent asylum. They had brought him back. He hadn't been a patient locked away from the world. He had been an orderly, a paid caregiver, forced to live in the shadows of his own home. He had been made to watch his parents raise the brother he had supposedly tried to harm into a prince, and raise me, the quiet one, into a ghost just like him. The cruelty wasn't just in who they chose, but in how they made the rejected one watch.